Good morning. I'm Tyler Martin, and here's the latest from Spectrum Autism Research. Women outnumbered among editors of top journals in neuroscience, but not in autism, by Nico McCarty. About 48% of editors of autism-specific journals are women, according to a Spectrum analysis. That fraction is far higher than for neuroscience journals, for which just 30% of editors are women, according to a study published Monday in Nature Neuroscience. The new study looked at editors at the top 50 English-language journals in neuroscience and psychology, as ranked by the Clarivate Analytics Science Citation Index Expanded List. Just 5 journals had an editorial board made up of at least 50% women: Nature Neuroscience, Nature Reviews Neuroscience, Nature Human Behavior, Progress in Neurobiology, and ACTA Neuropathological Communications. The findings mirror the underrepresentation of women among U.S. neuroscience faculty. Women account for about 30% of full professors, 37% of associate professors, and 45% of assistant professors, according to a 2019 analysis by Bias Watch Neuro, a website that tracks racial and gender representation in neuroscience and psychology. Bias Watch Neuro is funded by a grant from the Simons Foundation, Spectrum's parent organization. Our findings reiterate what's been shown in other fields, says lead investigator Eleanor Palzer, a postdoctoral scholar in neurology at the University of California, San Francisco. Generally speaking, you have a preponderance of men on the editorial boards of these journals and also those affiliated with the U.S. Palzer manually collected data on each editor's perceived gender and country of affiliation based on a publicly available biography or internet search. Those data revealed that 57% of neuroscience editors are based in North America and 52% in the United States alone, whereas 29% are based in Europe, 9% in Asia, 1% in Latin America, and less than 0.5% in Africa. The fraction of women editors at autism-specific journals is far higher, according to a Spectrum analysis. Across 3 journals, Autism, Autism Research, and the Journal of Autism and Developmental Disorders, nearly half of editors are women. But the country data are similarly skewed. More than 65% of autism editors are based in the United States and about 12% in the United Kingdom. Just one editor across the 3 journals is based in Africa, Patrice de Vries, a South African physician-scientist who was recently profiled by Spectrum. Palzer's study is likely the first to quantify gender disparities on editorial boards for neuroscience journals, but similar work has been published in other fields. An analysis of the top 25 general surgery journals published last year found that just 20% of editorial board members and 11% of editors-in-chief are women. Women are also less likely than men to author and publish neuroscience studies in leading journals. From 2019 to 2021, more than 17,000 authors of studies published in the Journal of Neuroscience, Neuron, Nature Neuroscience, and eNeuron were men, whereas about 9,400 of authors were women, according to data collected by Bias Watch Neuro. A first step toward parity is to quantify these gaps. We need to know the scope of the problem, or if there even is one, before we can remediate it, Palzer says. Having few women editors or few editors of diverse racial or ethnic backgrounds can have real consequences in terms of which papers are peer-reviewed and published in a journal, says Yale Niv, professor of psychology and neuroscience at Princeton University and co-founder of Bias Watch Neuro. When a paper is submitted to a journal, an editor decides whether to reject it or send it out for peer review, often after glancing only at its title and abstract, Niv says. This is such a potent place for biases because you have very little information about the paper itself. Journals with less diversity on their editorial boards tend to get fewer submissions from people of color and be less favorable to research by people of color, Niv adds. When editors of a psychology journal are white, about 4% of all publications mention the race of participants in the title or abstract, according to a 2020 study that drew on data from more than 26,000 psychology articles published between 1974 and 2018. When an editor is a person of color, by contrast, about 11% of papers printed in the journal mention participants' race. To counteract implicit biases, NIV says that journals should blind editors to the names and affiliations of authors on submitted papers. This won't solve the problem of having more women editors, but it can reduce bias due to not having enough women editors, editors of color, or editors that aren't from the U.S., NIV says. To recruit and retain more female editors, journal editors-in-chief should also acknowledge that you have a deficit and publicly commit to addressing it, says David Mandel, professor of psychiatry at the University of Pennsylvania and the outgoing editor-in-chief of Autism. We recently realized that our board contained a paucity of autistic people and people of color, he says. We called ourselves out in an editorial, and now we are working to address it. Mandel says editors should try to recruit rising stars to join their editorial board to increase diversity, because women who are full neuroscience professors are in the minority. That's all for today. Check back on Friday for more content from Spectrum Autism Research, or go to spectrumnews.org.